What's going on, ladies and gents? It's Salvaje. I'm back at it again with another Fortnite Save the World Best Weapons video. My supporter creator code is Salvaje. If you guys want to rock my creator code, I would really appreciate that. With that said, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so this best launchers video was a bit complicated to make because there's a lot of launchers in Save the World that basically do a pretty good job. So how I went when it came down to making what I did, when it came down to breaking this list is simple. I wanted to choose the best of the best launchers, launchers that specialize at something, and launchers that offer a lot of value when it comes down to your Save the World gameplay experience, and also launchers that add value in a team-based environment and is able to handle a crowd of husks, because that's mostly what launchers are going to be used for. With that said, let's get started, and keep in mind none of these launchers are in any specific order. Starting off with the first launcher is the Noble Launcher. The Noble Launcher is part of the base game now. You can actually recruit it from the collection book by going to expansion schematics and then of course researching the Noble Launcher schematic. So the Noble Launcher is a really good launcher. It has a lot of durability. It does a really decent amount of damage. It's just going to be melting down any basic husk at all whatsoever. Husky Husk is also going to be doing some pretty decent damage as well. You don't need full legendary perks to make the Noble Launcher a really good launcher either. And last but not least, this is just a really great top tier crowd control rocket launcher. However, it has a couple of weaknesses. You have to charge up the launcher, which usually takes about 3 to 4 seconds. On top of all that, you don't have focused crowd control damage. You basically just charge up the laser and then you throw the laser in the general direction. And you also have to be really good with positioning when it comes down to maximizing the Noble Launcher. However, the Noble Launcher is still a top tier launcher in my opinions, and it's just a launcher that every Save the World player should have. Even though it doesn't do massive damage to smashers and miss monsters, it does, in my opinion, some respectable damage, and in a team-based environment, which is going to be 95% of your Save the World encounters, your teammates, gadgets and abilities, as well as your own gadgets and abilities, is usually going to be enough to, of course, finish off those high priority targets that the Noble Launcher isn't going to be able to destroy. Anyways, the next launcher on the list is going to be the obliterating beast that is the Santa's Little Helper. This thing at power level 82 is going to be doing more damage than a power level 106 bazooka. Ever since I saw that, I realized, okay, the Santa's Little Helper is going to be an amazing weapon. There's a couple of weaknesses that the Santa's Little Helper has, however, which makes it a really balanced out launcher, but also a launcher that is really good and can add a lot of value. Let's jump into those weaknesses, and those weaknesses are a reload speed that isn't extremely well but can be fixed by putting a reload speed perk on your launcher, and of course putting the reload speed perk at least up until a blue. And then of course we also have durability, right? This launcher has really low durability. However, that doesn't really matter much, right? This thing has a ton of impact, which means every single husk that it hits, it's probably going to get knocked back, or it's going to get knocked back. On top of all that, this thing also dishes out massive amounts of damage. And did I mention that this thing can melt smashers extremely quickly? You can also do a critical rating, critical damage related build with this launcher, and you can dish out, from my understanding, up to 500,000 damage per rocket with this launcher. Do not quote me on the numbers, however, because you guys know how terrible I am with numbers. The point is, this launcher is able to dish out massive amounts of damage, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it, despite the fact that it might piss off some Save the World fossil players, as I like to say. But this launcher is in every way superior to the Dam Buster. Throughout my testing, even though the Dam Buster was a great launcher that was also able to dish out massive amounts of damage, the very slow reload speed and that little bit of extra damage that the Dam Buster was not able to put in and the Santa's Little Helper was able to put in basically made the Santa's Little Helper the superior launcher, okay? However, if you don't have the Santa's Little Helper, if you're watching this video at a later date, make sure that you get the Dam Buster. It's also a really good launcher. That's going to be my honorable mention when it comes down to the launchers in this video. The Dam Buster is really good, but of course the Santa's Little Helper is definitely the launcher that you want to get your hands on, specifically of course if you're trying to open up those birthday llamas. Now that we covered the Santa's Little Helper, let's cover the last launcher on the list when it comes down to the best launcher to Save the World, of course, as of early 2019. It shocks me that a lot of players actually said that this launcher sucked, but as you guys know, I'm not most players, I'm not most Save the World content creators. I like to keep a lot of things in mind when I'm reviewing a weapon, specifically what the weapon specializes on, which is why the last launcher on our list is going to be the Cannonade Launcher. This launcher is going to be leaving the shop this coming Wednesday, so you guys absolutely need to get your hands on this thing, and if you want, also spend your schematic XP on it. For more in-depth information on the Cannonade, of course, feel free to check out my Cannonade review, which I will drop in the description below. But I'm going to give you guys a quick and really good breakdown of why this Cannonade Launcher is probably the best launcher in all of Fortnite Save the World, or the best overall launcher in all of Fortnite Save the World. Let's go over some of the bullet points. This thing has focus crowd control damage. Even though the Noble Launcher is a really good crowd control launcher, the Noble Launcher has one weakness. It just shoots a laser that keeps on traveling, which means that you're not going to be able to have focused burst damage on a specific crowd of Husk. And the big issue with the Santa's Little Helper is that if you hit a crowd of Husk, you're going to be able to do some nice splash damage, but other Husk are basically going to get away from that crowd, which means that the Husk are going to be spread out. The Cannonade basically has the good crowd control that the Noble Launcher brings into the table, and even though it doesn't have massive amounts of damage, it still has some pretty decent damage, which makes the Cannonade a fusion of the Noble Launcher as well as the Santa's Little Helper. This thing is able to dish out consistent amounts of damage on a group of Husk, which is what makes this weapon such an amazing, outstanding launcher. This is also a launcher that specializes on doing overall great damage to basic Husk, as well as some other high priority targets like blasters and Husky Husk, for example. Clearly, this isn't a Smasher Destroyer, alright, like a Bundle Bus, for example. I'm not going to compare a Bundle Bus to a Pain Train when it comes down to taking out Smashers, because I know my Bundle Bus is going to be able to do that faster than the Pain Train. Doesn't mean that the Pain Train isn't a bad weapon, however. On top of all that, the launcher is able to dish out respectable damage, not garbage damage like some of these people that have been exaggerating are actually saying. This thing, if it were to do more damage, it would actually not be a launcher, it would just be an overpowered weapon that Epic is going to be nerfing. Okay, last but not least, this thing is also a fully automatic weapon, which basically means that you're going to have a lot of utility out of it. Since it's a fully automatic weapon and every single one of the cannons that it fires is able to do some pretty decent damage, and it pierces multiple Husk, by the way, and it also has the ability that dishes out extra damage after it pierces multiple Husk. Look, what I'm trying to say is that you're going to be getting a lot of value out of this weapon, and the fact that you get a lot of value from this weapon basically makes up from the quote-unquote not enough damage that this weapon provides. As you guys know, I hate reviewing weapons based on their individual performance, and that leads me forward to my last and final points. This thing on a team-based environment, it's actually a top-tier launcher. You don't really need that crazy 500,000 damage that the Santa's Little Helper provides, which is why I barely even use the thing. And when it comes down to crowd control, I don't really use the Noble Launcher as much because I just can't have focused crowd control damage. That's why I really like the Cannonade and why it made it to this list. It's the best of both worlds. And last but not least, it's also very adaptable when it comes down to abilities such as the Shock Tower, Teddy, Smoke Bomb, Shockwave. Since it's basically a fully automatic rifle, you can use this thing at the medium and short ranges, and you can mix it up with abilities, gadgets, and of course, most importantly, since this launcher has some pretty decent range, you can also shoot into trap tunnels if you're daring and you don't know that you're not supposed to shoot into trap tunnels. Trust me, that happened to me once. It was terrible, man. Anyways, the point is, guys, that this is actually a really great launcher, and the reason why I went really in depth into breaking down why the Cannonade Launcher is good is because there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes down to this weapon. And the reason for that is because reviewers just don't really have a criteria to review weapons. They just give their first impressions and they call that their first impressions a review. So if you're interested on high quality Save the World content, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and you guys are on the lookout for some other Save the World projects that I have coming up this month. I actually have a 100 Save the World hero tip videos, hopefully dropping sometime by the end of April, and I have many more projects planned. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to join the Salvaje Cartel. Peace out.